When you first open your Visual Studio Code, so this is the environment we are going to be using, because for now we are not going to build complex projects. So this should be your welcoming screen. So I want you just close that one, and also so that will now leave you with a blank new editor page. So go into File, select the new file, and then after selecting it, go to File, then make sure you have enabled the autosave, so it will be easier for you to run your code. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to save this file with a .python extension, so that is .py. So click on that. Then I want you to navigate to a directory. So for mine, I'm just going to save it in my desktop. So I'm going to call it maybe like learning.py. So make sure that it has the .py, or if you don't want to do this, so make sure that you are under this, make sure that you select Python. So Python is below it, so alphabetically order, so we have Perl. So these are just a different programming language, and here is Python. So if you don't want to add the dot extension, then you can just save it here. So I'm just going to actually save it because I added a .py. So once you add that, you have this Python. Actually, is this a logo or something? Yeah, the logo. Now these are the files it will now be we will be working with. So we really have a lot of files here. So I'm just going to maybe like just close them, but so this is the place where you can now actually have your directory. So but for our case, I'm just going to minimize it. So the first thing we want to do, super excited, printing hello world. Now this actually is the first thing. So I don't know why they decided to call it hello world. So maybe it's somebody's name. No, I don't know. So to print your first program, then you have to use the print. The print is either a keyword or a function or something. So this is a method. So this is just a method that now tells our computer, hey, we want to display something on our screen. So, and whatever it has to come on this screen, because it's a string, comes in two double quotes. So the first double quote and the second closing one. So once you now have this, then you can now type your message like, hello, Teams Owen. So this is just my name. So I can now, again, maybe like print, then you can now like type in hello world, or print something maybe like welcome to my YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe, like, and share. So when you want now to run, you can go to run, and then you can choose run without debugging. So one of the most interesting thing about this run without debugging means it will now allow us to get an input from the user. But in cases where we don't have a user input, so I'm just going to close it. So you can see now the output is hello Teams Owen and hello world. Now I want also to, I'm going to like maybe try to increase this my editor. So I'm going to just enlarge it. So but first, let's see how this is gonna work. So once I've actually printed this, so instead of running all this, then you can just use the shortcut. So that's Control Alt N. So I want you to observe the changes. So this one automatically runs directly without getting input from the user. So we are going to see how we are going to get inputs from the user. So the next thing we now want to do after we have done this, the next thing we can do is maybe we can just print some shapes. So maybe like print, so let's say we now want to maybe like print a right angle triangle. So we can just add this, and then also add the, just going to copy and paste this one. So select Control C, then press enter, Control V, something like that. So make sure you just close this one so that it gives you a good space. So with this one, then maybe I can decide to add maybe some underscores, also this one. So maybe also try to add that one there. Again, you can also try to add that. And so let's add some backslashes now. So I'm going to add one here, and then add another one there. And then you're also going to add another one, then delete that, then also delete that. So with this one, if you run this, we expect that it's going to print something like a shape, because we do now have all this. So once I click my, okay, we do have an error, so we just add one underscore here. So we're going to like increase the number of underscores for our cases. So this will now allow us to print something to the screen. So if we run this, then I think, oh, we have an error. Printing string literal. So going to maybe add another one so that it doesn't take it. So if you now use, so let's say we are printing a rectangle triangle, but now with a different shape. So we are trying to print this. So if you now run this, I will expect to see the same shape. So you can just print different shapes. So we could have printed maybe something like a rectangle triangle, but this is something just simple about printing LOL. So I'm just going to minimize that. And then now we want to deal with something called variables. So a variable is just maybe like a container maybe for storing values. So what this means is you are trying to book a space in your computer, telling your computer, hey, I need a space to store a certain value. So maybe like we run now, instead of printing our name like hello world, so we could assign it a variable name. And one thing to remember about variable name is that they should actually be descriptive, make sure they are actually short, and maybe they should also follow a certain naming principle. So we're going to see them. So we have the camel case learning and also the other ways of learning. So maybe let's start by printing my name with a camel case. So I'm going to say my name is Teams Owen. So that means I'm printing my name to the computer. So now if I now print this, so you select print, and if you now look at this method tells you that it takes in a parameter. So that means we are going to place here this variable name. So my name, Control Alt N. So we now have Teams Owen is printed. So we can also maybe assign an integer. So I'm just going to clear this up. Let's say my age, so age, and then maybe like my age is 45. So that's an integer. So unlike in other programming languages, whereby you have to first start by declaring the data type, maybe like in Java, this is not the same case with Python. So Python allows you to actually quickly give variables and data types to a different variable without having to tell Python that, hey Python, this is an integer, this is a double, a float. No. So with this, we're going to just maybe like, if I now print my age is let's say, so print my age. Great. So Control Alt N to run it. So when I run it, I now have 45. So 45 is actually the same integer, whereby I told Python I want to assign it into a variable name. Now, so let's practice something maybe like string concatenation. So we can add my name. So we can have something like my name, then is Teams Owen. So what if I want to print this now without doing printing this way? So like maybe like my name is Teams Owen, maybe aged like 45 years. So if I run this, I expect this to be printed. So that is my name is Teams Owen, age 45. What if I want to do this without using this? Then Python provides us with something called string concatenation. So with string concatenation, you can have combine different data types in your print statement. So let's say I want now to say my name is Teams Owen and I am aged 45. So that means we're going to use a plus. So this is the concatenator. So this is actually not the plus mathematics operator, but in Python we call this a concatenator. So I can now say print my name is, now I now add this. So my name is, and then I tell Python to go and check. So I tell Python, go and check if there exists as a value that has been assigned in this variable name. So it will now go and check what is inside the variable name. It's Teams Owen. So it's now going to directly add here. So my name is Teams Owen. So aged. Okay, now this has to come into a string. So aged, and then I now want to concatenate it. And now before we do that, so you cannot directly combine a string and a number. So you have to do something called, we have implicit and explicit conversion. So we're going to tell Python to take this integer and directly convert it into a string value. So we're going to call the str method, and now we're going to pass in our age. Now, so when we run this, you see now that my name is Tim Owen, aged 45. Oops, this is so close. So we have to add a space here. So Control Alt again. Great, this is now well organized. So my name is Tim Owen, aged 45. So that's actually something very interesting about these variable names. Now we can also add some variable booleans. So we have a true or false value. So let's say we are trying to check if the weather is cold or hot. So we can cold is cold. We can set it to true. So maybe like we want to, if the weather is cold, don't go to swimming or wear a jacket. So I'm just going to clear my output. Now we now have this. So we're going to say, if we now print this, then inside this variable name, Python will tell us that we are using a Boolean variable. So it's either maybe a true or a false. So that is actually the way we do assignment with Booleans. So I'm going to maybe print something different. So if I now print is cold and then I run it, I now find that it's false. So if I change this value to true, that means we now have a changed value that's true. So that's something very interesting about variable assignment. So we can also have floats and also double. So we can say maybe double number, and then we can have maybe 5.90. So this is a double. So Python will know that when we assign maybe a double number and then a boolean, a string, an integer, it will automatically know what that is. So if now print maybe the double number, then I'm trying to try to clear my output and then I run the program again. So we now receive 5.9. So it has automatically rounded off this 0. So we're going to see, the next thing we're going to see is how is this possible, like rounding things off. But before we do that, I have an assignment for you. So I want to assume that we have a car and it carries 35 passengers. Its fueling station is Total. So Total is just a fueling station, and then we now want to check if our driver is drunk. So if our driver is drunk, that means he has to drive no car. So we have to assign this into a boolean. Then so let's give this one the driver name. So as I had told you before, you can do this kind of naming, which is mostly preferred in Python, unlike the camel case where you start with a small letter and finish with a capital letter in Java or other programming languages. Then we're going to assign our car that it has a capacity of actually 35. So I want you to actually design that code such that when it runs, it says that our driver is, and then the name of the driver. So maybe like our driver is Omondi and is carrying, so maybe let's say is carrying maybe 35 passengers and fuels. So let's just simplify it. Fueling at Total. So Total is just a petrol station. So you have to assign this a variable name. So maybe like Total Nairobi. So we have Nairobi over here. So this entire Nairobi, Total Nairobi, must be assigned into actually the petrol station. So we have the driver name, the carrying capacity, and so let's actually use the Boolean one. So instead of and it's not drunk, is that 5? And so let's call it drinking status. Drinking status must be false. So I want you to run that, then we'll meet in the next lesson.